Chapter 16, Part 4. Here we're going to be looking at theories of sex differences in personality. Okay? There we go. So we're starting out with socialization and social role theory, okay, which you would have heard of this one the most. That we learn our gender roles through observational learning and social learning theory. The other two the other one you may not have heard of is hormonal theories. Okay, so that's that there's physiological reasons why there's differences in gender or sex differences. And then evolutionary theory, which you've heard of everything in this section back in the chapter on evolutionary perspectives of personality. So the new one here is hormonal theories, but we will touch on all. Socialization theory says basically boys and girls become different because of the way we teach them. We teach boys to be boys, we teach boys to be masculine, and we reward them for being masculine. And we teach girls to be feminine and play with dolls, or do their hair, or get their nails done, or any of these feminine stereotypes. We teach them those things and we reward them for those things. Over time, each adopts sex-appropriate behaviors, and this is the most widely held theory. Bandura's social learning theory adds to this. It's in that they don't just learn from experience, their own experience, they learn by observing others. So you see, girls see how mothers and, female teachers and girls on social media and girls on TikTok, they see how they act and what's rewarded, and so they know to behave that way. And boys watch boys and what they're supposed to be doing. The other side of this is both boys and girls also see what happens when people act or behave in ways that are not conforming to their gender, which is often responded to with criticism or some sort of negative consequence. So they also learn that way. So some research supports socialization and social learning theories of sex differences. So I pulled out some research pieces here. One, fathers do engage more in physical play with sons than with daughters. We do tend to buy our children gendered toys, right? Mothers buy, we buy certain toys for females. Like the holidays are coming up. And rest assured, girls will be getting a lot of the time girls will be getting girl toys or girl presents, and boys will be getting presents that are more in line with what the gender of boy indicates, right? Cross-cultural evidence for different treatment of boys and girls. So around the world, boys in most cultures are socialized to be more competitive than girls. Around the world, girls are assigned more domestic chores, where boys are permitted to stray further away from home from girls. So you see girls doing more chores around the house, boys, doing more chores outside, mowing the lawn, doing the garbage, that sort of thing. Girls encouraged to stay around the house more. Survey of parents from 15 countries, global tendency to see boys as independent and girls as vulnerable and in need of protection. Restricted mobility, girls are more restricted to stay around the house more than boys, as stated earlier. More physical play, same as above. So the problem with socialization theory, this is the most widely held theory, right? But there are problems with it, which is it's an awfully simple theory, right? It's one directional. Basically, it runs one way. Children learn from outside experiences and the influence of others. So the arrow is only pointing towards the child. It's just one way. It's very simple. There's no account of the origin of sex-differentiated socialization practices. Across time, why do men and women passively accept the roles that they are assigned? Not that all do, but in general, as a group, there has been a notion of the female gender and male gender like for, hundreds of years. So why does it continue? Why does it go on? Why do we just accept these roles? The next theory is the hormonal theory, and this one may be new. Hormonal physiological differences cause boys and girls to diverge over development, not the external environment. So they're saying that boys and girls act differently because they have different biological, there's differences in their hormones, mainly looking at testosterone. So testosterone and what behaviors are linked to testosterone, and boys tend to have significantly higher levels of testosterone, which would be the reason why they act differently than girls. So congenital adrenal hyperplasia, we're going to call it CAH. So they study this hormonal theory and testosterone by looking at infants that have CAH. So this is a condition where the female fetus has overreactive adrenal gland. Female is hormonally masculized in utero. So if females have high levels of testosterone in utero, what difference does that make in their behavior and even physically when they're children and when they become adults? So girls with CAH tend to have preferences for male typical toys. Adults with CAH show superiority in traditionally masculine cognitive skills such as spatial rotation and male types' occupational preferences. If you remember spatial rotation, we talked about that back in the evolution chapter on evolution. So in general, males tend to be better at spatial rotation, which is, you can think of it as football or hunting. That's how I talked about it in class. So in football, if you were having, I don't know the position's name, the dude runs across from one side of the field to the other, and the quarterback can sort of time out the speed and throw the ball at the exact place where he's supposed to be when he gets there, right? And then the same would be with hunting. If there was an animal moving across the grass or the field or whatever you want to call it, and then males are better at predicting where in space they should be throwing and at what speed they should be throwing that arrow in order to hit their target. Okay, so what this is saying is that female adults with CAH, they had high levels of testosterone. They take on these skills that are typically male. Following puberty, there's little overlap in levels of circulating testosterone. Men have about 10 times more testosterone than women. So, in women, having a higher level of average testosterone is associated with pursuing male stereotypical careers and more successful in their career. Another study found that higher degrees of testosterone is associated with higher dominance and aggressiveness in both sexes. And higher levels of testosterone is associated with sexual desire. And one study they cite, which I found very interesting, is that women tend to peak in testosterone levels just prior to ovulation, right? And that results in increased female-initiated intercourse. So from an evolutionary perspective, the goal for women is, or goal for anyone, is reproduction. So the fact that their testosterone level peaks right before ovulation, and then they have higher sexual desire, just sort of makes sense, right? Anyway, so that is hormonal theory. Hold on one second here. Yeah, then we move on to educational. So hormonal theory focuses on testosterone and what effect testosterone has. Increased level of testosterone is basically responsible for sex differences and sex-linked behavior. Know about CAH, what that means. And then the sex differences between males and women's having to do with increased testosterone. Evolutionary psychology, as I said, we've spoken about this before. Males and females differ only in some domains. For the most part, we are similar across the board. Okay, we have the same, for example, same taste preferences for sugar, for salt, for fat, for protein, because both males and females have a need for these things, and we've experienced the environment in the same way. We've experienced challenges the same way. Where there's going to be sex differences are only going to be areas where we have different problems to face, right? So problems must be solved to survive and reproduce. Women are trying to reproduce, but we have a different problem than men. Women have to reproduce. They have to find a man that will invest in them, right? Provide protection, and provide resources. Women are going to become pregnant and be pregnant for 10 months and then raise that child for years. Women invest very, very, very heavily in their offspring. Whereas men's problem is not that. Men's problem is that they have high levels of competition against other men in order to get these highly valued women. So, because of these differences, this is one way that men and women are different. So, research supports many predicted sex differences. So, males greater than women, greater desire for sexual variety. Men greater than women, greater number of sexual partners. Men are more aggressive and take more physical risks, and they're more interested in casual sex. So the problem with this, there's no accounting of individual and within sex differences. For example, why are some women more interested in casual sex? Why are some men more dependent and nurturing while others are more aggressive? No theory is going to cover everything. All theories are going to have their criticism, which is where we're going to get to here. An integrated theoretical perspective would be best, and we don't have one yet. Okay, so all three of these theories have their strengths. This socialization has a lot to offer, some very valid points, but is simple. Hormonal has some very valid points. Again, does not cover everything. Evolutionary, very valid points, but does not cover everything. Ideally, we need a theory that is going to take into consideration all three of these perspectives. Are there evolutionary reasons parents encourage it? Okay, so at this point, there's no answer to the science of sex differences, but whatever theory eventually comes to be, all three of them are going to need to consider social, hormonal, and evolutionary so that we have a complete picture. And that is the end of this video. I will see you in the next chapter, let's say that.